Don't be afraid of the dark. Just relax and let the darkness fall over you.
Welcome to Afraidish, a weekly podcast where each month we venture into a new state and take a deep dive into the paranormal and unexplained, while enjoying some tasty adult beverages. From ghost sightings to hauntings, urban legends, and cryptids, let's get weird and Afraidish together. I'm Paul Branham.
And I'm Ashley Branham.
And welcome to episode 4
Woohoo!
of Afraidish. Yeah, we made it. We probably will have a little longer episode today. This is the last episode for Missouri. Some people call it Missouri. I don't like that.
I don't either.
To me, it's kind of like, makes you sound uneducated. I know it's probably regional, but it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it is necessarily an uneducated thing, but it's like an Ozarker thing, like a hillbilly kind of thing, which is fine. Everybody has their own vernacular. But yeah, as a grammar police myself, it does bother me when people mispronounce words, or names, like Nevada, Missouri gets me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Nevada, Missouri.
Yeah, you know what I call it? I call it misery. But, no, it's home, I guess.
It's fine.
Anyways, I have a few stories, a long one and a couple of shorter ones.
I have one story, and then I have another little honorable mention that I want to talk about. There's no, specific paranormal associations with this event that I have been able to find, but I definitely think it's an interesting story, and it's one that I didn't know about, so maybe it'll be new to some other people as well.
Cool.
Alright, so what are we drinking tonight, Paul?
Well, I am drinking a beer called Step Dude American Lager by Mother's Brewing Company.
Okay.
In Springfield.
Yes, they're from Springfield.
It's pretty good. Like I said before, I'm a lager guy, and this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's very rich.
Yeah.
And I am drinking a Session Sour Lizzie Twister Blackberry from Piney River Brewing Co. in Bucyrus, Missouri. Probably Bucyrus.
Bucyrus? I don't know.
Anyway, Tasty Ozarks is what it says on the can. And I find it tart and tasty.
It was too sour for me. I tried it. I tried to drink half of it, but I couldn't.
Yeah, Paul's a Moscato kind of girl.
Ha ha ha. Yeah.
I mean, really, if you're drinking wine, it's Moscato.
Yeah, that's true.
Which makes my tummy hurt just thinking about it. I'm a Pinot Noir bitch.
It is pretty sweet, yeah.
I like my wine dry, like I like my humor.
Yeah. Alright, let's get started.
Okay.
My first story is MOMO, the Missouri Monster.
MOMO!
Bigfoot, Sasquatch, Skunk Ape, Yeti, Almas, Yeren, Yowie. Wherever you live and whatever you want to call this tall, hairy, stinky creature, everyone knows of a tale of this massive footed beast. Footed beast. Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about the Missouri Monster, aka MOMO.
MOMO!
Residents in Louisiana, Missouri. Yeah, that's over there just north of St. Louis, right on the Mississippi River.
Okay.
They reported seeing a tall creature with tons of black fur or hair, so much that it covered his face and entire body. 2 children...
I know a couple of guys that look like that.
Yeah. 2 children, in fact, told their parents of seeing the creature in their backyard, bloodied from a dead dog he held in his hands.
Ooh.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of a July 20th, 1972 article from the Post-Dispatch, a little newspaper in St. Louis.
Okay.
The monster hunt on Marzolf Hill is just a monstrous joke, according to the non-believers. But nobody is going to get Edgar Harrison to believe that, or his wife Betty, or his daughter Doris, or his son Terry Keith, or Vivian Hutchins either.
Those are some names.
Love those
Terry Keiths.
first names. Mrs. Betty Harrison, Hutchins' sister-in-law, and her 7 children, oh Jesus Christ, 7 children,
Quiverful,
have moved in with Hutchins and his wife. Mrs. Harrison says she will never go back up there to the Harrison house on Allen Street at the foot of Marzolf Hill. Hutchins, 56 years old, was a service station attendant until he suffered a minor stroke. He lives on Georgia Street in town. He hasn't seen the monster, but he has heard it and smelled it too. Yeah. The odor is worse than any old goat you ever smelled, Hutchins said. Its growl is like a bear's, but a bear doesn't run on 2 feet. Doris, 15, and Terry Keith, 8, saw the thing in their backyard, which leads it into the woods on the hill. It was right there in the tree, 6 or 7 feet tall, black and hairy, said Doris. It stood like a man, but it didn't look like one to me. Doris saw the thing a week ago last Tuesday afternoon. She was home watching the other Harrison children while her father was at work at the Department of Public Works, and her mother was at the cafe the Harrisons had been running on Main Street. The cafe is closed now. Too much trouble with all the kids, Mrs. Harrison explained. Terry and Wally Paul, he's 5 years old.
Wally Paul.
Yeah, Wally Paul.
Polly Wall.
Polly Wall. Wally Paul. We're out in the back with Chubby the dog.
Aww.
These names, I tell you. It was the 70s. It was the 70s. Terry and Wally Paul, he's 5 years old. We're out in the back with Chubby the dog, Doris said. When I heard Terry start screaming, I looked out the bathroom window and saw it. I started crying and ran into the other room to call Mom on the telephone, and then she and Dad came on home. Mrs. Harrison interrupted her daughter. You left out the part, she said. You forgot to tell how Terry Keith's face was so white when he got into the house you couldn't see a freckle.
That's how they describe me on a daily basis.
Yeah. Terry Keith is a red-haired with a considerable number of freckles. Whatever Terry Keith saw, his brother Wally Paul didn't. Ever since that Tuesday night of last week, Shelby Ward, the police chief, has had a bad time. Many a night he has been called out of bed to go up on the hill to investigate things people hear. Yesterday morning, Ward got about 24 men together and made 3 passes up that hill. We didn't find a thing. I hope that ends it. However, the search party wasn't back sitting in the shade on Clyde Estes' front stoop across the city hall more than 20 minutes when a new report came in. Up at the restaurant, they're saying we didn't find any trace of the thing because it's got a big tail that swept away its footprints, said Nelson Clark with a laugh.
So Bigfoot has a tail?
Supposedly.
Okay.
Clark, a member of the fire department, had been on the hunt. When Doris Harrison said that the thing was only 6 or 7 feet tall, she was contradicting other reports, which said the monster had grown to between 7 and 12 feet tall.
Wow.
The Mississippi River town in Pike County, with about 5,000 persons, okay, this article says persons, but I think they mean people, is generally conservative, said George Miner. Aren't all small towns conservative? He asked. John Gillis, news editor of the Louisiana Press Journal, said, the people here usually don't get excited about things. But Glenn Walker, who drives a taxi cab, thinks the whole story is a lot of malarkey.
I like that word.
Malarkey. He said, you can put out one word right here, and by the time it gets back around the block, you've got a dictionary. Pretty much.
I mean, yeah, you ever play that game of telephone in school? Where, like, the teacher could say, Ashley's wearing a blue shirt. And then by the time it gets back around, it's, Ashley's a turd. Yeah.
There are stories that the monster picked up a sports car and hauled it into a ditch.
What? A sports car specifically?
A sports car, yep. And some persons say the thing has 3 toes on each foot and has green eyes or red eyes.
Oh.
Someone is supposed to have seen it crossing Highway 79 with a sheep or dog or something in its mouth. Ward's worry is that people are going to go up the hill with guns looking for this thing and somebody's going to get shot.
Yeah, in a small town.
Yep.
Panic sets in.
Yeah. We've been up there and we're convinced there's nothing there now. We've got the hill barricaded off, but you know some kids will get up there at night. More than likely, that's how it all started anyway, some kids making noises. Vic Meyer, too, was worried about guns on the hill. He raises Australian sheepdogs and quarter horses down Highway 79 at Clarksville. He came up for the hunt because he is a member of the Pike County Rescue Squad. Uh-huh. There were maybe 100 people at City Hall when we got together for the hunt, Meyer said, and most of them had guns. I was glad when Shelby held it to law enforcement officers and members of the rescue squad. I wouldn't have gone up there if he hadn't. Harrison, who has worked for the city for 21 of his 41 years, says he and maybe 50 other persons had heard the monster. Harrison is a deacon in the Pentecostal church. Last Friday, he said, we were having a regular church meeting at my house when we all heard it. It was kind of like a loud growling noise. We heard it 3 times. Then it seemed like it was hurt or something.
Huh.
It gave out a large yelp. Mrs. Harrison said, it sounded like a gorilla. That's what it is. A Bigfoot. I heard they've got one in California and up in Canada. Harrison has put out bait for the monster. He hung some fish from a tree and hung some ham skin on a limb. The bait hasn't been touched. In addition, Harrison has tied his dog up there in the hill behind the house at night while I sit out there waiting. There's something up there. We just haven't found it yet. Some persons think the Harrison children saw a honey bear forced down toward town in search of water in Town Branch Creek, which runs close to the Harrison house. The weather has been hot and dry. Others say what the Harrisons heard probably was some kids fooling around with a tape recorder. The search served at least one purpose in an election year. 4 candidates for county sheriff were out showing their devotion to duty. But even that ended in failure for Jack Floyd, the police chief at nearby Bowling Green, who is one of the Democrats running for sheriff in the primary next month.
Ooh, a Democrat.
Yeah.
In a small town.
I thought I'd get rid of some of the competition, said Floyd, but all I saw to shoot was a Republican.
Snap. Guys got jokes.
Yeah.
Do not condone shooting members of the opposite political party of you.
Or anyone, period.
Or anyone. Just don't shoot people. Why?
Anyways. And according to a Vice.com article, nearly 50 years after those initial MOMO sightings, indie filmmaker Seth Breedlove has released his latest film, Momo the Missouri Monster. And yes, we did watch it.
We did. We watched it fucking twice.
It was...
Okay, so this documentary filmmaker...
Yeah, I'll get into that. I'll talk about how... yeah.
You're going to talk about how it was filmed?
Yeah.
And how it was portrayed?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, in the film, Breedlove weaves together a documentary format with a fake 1970s B-movie accounts to tell the little-known story. It's a cool, campy movie destined to become a cult classic, but it also explores an often ignored aspect of cryptid mythology, what creature sightings reflect about our world. You know, I don't know about cool and campy, but it's...
You know, so if they were just honest about it,
yeah.
it wouldn't have been so bad. But they present this film as literally, like, the guy stands in front of the camera, he's opening this documentary with a monologue. And he's standing there talking about how he was searching through some archives and found this tape of this movie that was made in the 70s and never released during Monster Mania, when, the creature from the Black Lagoon or whatever was released, the Boggy Pete or whatever, and like there was all these monster movies being made, so this movie was, quote, made, but like once they start playing it, like we're watching this and I'm like, this is not adding up. This movie is not from the 70s.
No.
Those jeans are not actually vintage, although whoever designed the costuming for the women's outfits, oh my god, perfect, chef's kiss, amazing. The outfits in this movie were fantastic, but it was 70s inspired.
Yeah.
Like, this was obviously shot on somebody's iPhone with a boom
like
mic.
It, yeah.
There's some very interesting special effects with some UFOs and some flashing lights in the sky.
Yeah, I'll get to that part. So, yeah.
Sorry, spoilers!
It's kind of ridiculous.
But if they were honest about the fact that it's not a vintage, like this is the hill I'm dying on right now. It has nothing to do with Momo. It It has everything to do with the lie that this movie was made in the 70s. And it was most certainly not. It was made in 2018, 2019.
It's 2019, yeah.
But it was probably filmed in 2018 and edited, and it was like some people, some probably honest-to-goodness Missourians, got together, made a low-budget, I would say C film. It was not bad. Like, I wasn't wanting to gouge my eyes out watching it.
I mean, well, the so-called found footage was made to portray what people actually saw.
Right, I get that.
In Louisiana, but yeah, it's still.
But in the context of it being presented as a vintage film roll found in a basement somewhere, and it actually wasn't. Like, that's what got me.
Yeah.
That's what irritates, is that this con artist made this mockumentary. He's poking fun at these people when every other I researched this documentary. Like, you were researching MOMO, I'm researching this documentary. This guy makes these documentaries, and usually he's very respectful. Like, people were leaving reviews on his IMDb, and they were like, normally I love the, films made by this person.
Are you talking about Lyle Blackburn?
Yeah.
Or the creator of the film?
I don't know. But the IMDb review of this movie.
Okay, yeah.
Was, normally I like this person's work. I didn't catch the name, if they even said it, but normally I like this person's work. It's usually very respectful, but this seems like he was specifically poking fun at this group of people for no reason.
Yeah.
Which I'm like, why? But maybe it wasn't, maybe he just had this half-cocked idea to present this phony 1970s film footage, but he didn't actually he had to manufacture film footage.
Yeah. Who knows?
That to me is the issue.
Yeah, anyway. Monsters are a reflection of where we are in history as much as they are a spooky tale to tell around the campfire, Breedlove said. Monster stories tend to change and evolve with time. Oh, fuck me, excuse me. Matching where we are scientifically, artistically, or as a society, and in the long term, they act as a window into our own past. Some monsters, like the Mothman of West Virginia, have
Mothman.
Have a huge following and even a yearly festival in their honor. Momo just never made it to the big leagues and was in the dustbin of history as the world moved on. Didn't help that the reportedly hairy, lumbering creature was similarly in description to the iconic Bigfoot.
I kind of feel bad for Momo.
Yeah, I mean,
I love a good underdog.
Yeah.
I really do.
I believe Louisiana tried to have Momo festivals, but the townspeople never really cared that much, Jason Alpha, author of several books on America's cryptids, said. The big difference between Mothman and Momo is that Mothman, at least at the time of the Silver Bridge collapse, was a unique monster. I hate to put it this way, but as much as I love a good Bigfoot story, the big guy has become too common in popular culture to attract that much attention.
Yeah.
According to Murray, most people in Louisiana just don't care anymore.
I get that. I mean,
yeah.
You move on. Most of the people that experienced it were never taken seriously, so there's kind of that black mark.
Yeah.
Where, if you repeat the stories, you're talking about that bull malarkey.
Yeah.
I get it.
There were people that were afraid, but it's not something that has had a tremendous lasting effect, he said. Most of the young people don't know anything about it.
Yeah.
Momo and many cryptids are indicative of a broader issue. Once bustling rural communities with booming populations and industries are slowly decaying.
Oh.
With younger populations moving to cities, many small towns are fading away, much like their monster legends. Point Pleasant, West Virginia, the home of the Mothman, has pivoted to turn its strange past into a successful economic venture.
This is true.
Other towns and their monsters aren't so lucky, but for a brief moment in time, Louisiana, Missouri caught the wave. This is a really small, intimate story about this tiny town that was dramatically affected by the sightings, Breedlove explained. I'll always jump at any opportunity I can find to tell stories in a way that challenges us. As our world changes, so too will our monsters. So yeah, like we said earlier, half of this movie is documentary and half is found footage from 1975.
Yes.
Yep.
And we roasted the found footage.
And supposedly it was never found or never released until now.
Right.
Apparently this guy, who is the host and narrator of the documentary part of the movie, Lyle Blackburn, he found it and brought it to the world to see.
Yes, what a honorable man.
So Lyle Blackburn is an author, musician, film producer, and cryptozoologist. Of course he is.
Right?
Why wouldn't he be?
Right? Because you don't do cryptozoology documentaries if you're not into that.
Yeah. And he is still the lead singer and guitarist for the Western horror punk band Ghoultown.
What?
Well known in the U.S. and in Europe.
Western horror
and
punk. Three?
Yeah.
Western and punk in the same sentence.
You know, I've never heard of it. I've never heard of him until we watched that movie.
Right.
It's crazy.
I mean, he looks like every... It's funny. He looks like every, like,
Southern wannabe cowboy.
Cowboy / biker.
He is from Texas.
Okay.
So. Yeah, he is the host of Blackburn's Cryptid Case Files in the movie and is talking about Momo as part of his case files.
Right.
So this movie is, to me, more like a Z movie instead of a B movie.
Because rate it C. Again, I want to be nice to the people that made the film.
It's
the
true.
Actors, the cast, the costume department. They are not the ones who deserve to be roasted.
And the movie is based on one family I talked about earlier, the Harrison family.
Yes.
Like their kids found the hairy monster with the dog and his bloody with the dog in his hand.
They were the ones that the two kids were outside and the other sister was at the house.
She was inside doing dishes and she looks outside and screams and
right.
Yeah. The movie does depict Momo as being a 3-fingered and 3-toed alien-type creature that crash-landed near the small town of Louisiana.
Yes.
Because in the beginning, you see like a spacecraft crashing
into the hillside.
Yep. I mean, the documentary part of the movie seems legit when people from the small town are being interviewed.
Yes, I really enjoyed watching the interviews of the people that were there, or, Uncle so-and-so told this story to me.
Yeah, I mean, those people were legit. They actually live in Louisiana, Missouri, and they seem, kind-hearted. And some people think it was just a bear or a large animal, and some think it actually could be a Bigfoot creature. Either way, the story of Momo made the small town of Louisiana, Missouri famous for a while. Do you think Momo could be real? Could Bigfoot be an alien creature from outer space? Could these sightings just be bears or larger animals? If you saw Bigfoot, would it make you afraidish?
Yeah, I think I would definitely not want to come into close proximity with a Bigfoot.
Yeah, for real. Even a bear would scare the shit out of me.
Yeah.
All right. Ready for my next one?
I don't know. Am I?
I don't know.
Is it long?
It shouldn't be.
Okay.
All right. This one is about Zombie Road.
Oh,
near St. Louis, yeah. This is from a riverfronttimes.com article, which afraidishpodcast did donate to, because it's a small St. Louis publication.
Aww.
Originally, the path served as a crossing point over the Merrimack River for members of the Osage tribe.
Okay.
When white settlers arrived in the 1800s, natives didn't hand over the land or the crossing peacefully.
I mean, and I don't understand why they ever were expected to.
Understandably. In his 1883 history of St. Louis County, John Thomas Scharf reported that Native Americans regularly attacked early pioneers from behind trees and atop cliffs, establishing the area's reputation as a place where danger lurked.
Yeah.
Later in the 1860s, the path became known as Lawler Ford Road and was used to connect the train station at the Glencoe Resort community to the Merrimack River.
Okay.
One of the first documented deaths along the path occurred in 1876 when Della Hamilton McCullough, the wealthy widow of a prominent St. Louis judge, was hit and killed by a train.
Aww.
Legend has it that McCullough's ghost continued to walk the railroad tracks near the path following her untimely passing.
Okay.
Dozens of drownings in the nearby Merrimack River over the past century cemented stories that the path and its surroundings harbored bad luck. In the 1950s, a myth surfaced that a mental patient named Zombie met his end on Lawler Ford Road after escaping from a nearby asylum. Only his bloody garments were ever found.
Wow.
Soon after, the trail earned the nickname Zombie Road, a hangout for teens to stage late-night parties. And in true slasher film fashion, some of those teens allegedly experienced bizarre and gruesome deaths along the trail.
Oh.
Including getting struck by unseen trains.
What?
Yeah. Falling from cliff sides, and even one tale of a high school student who suffocated after huffing cooking spray.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Getting struck by unseen trains.
Trains, yeah.
Were there accident reports that...
I don't know.
I wonder how much of it was, we were farting around and I ran my friend over with a car, let's go and tell the authorities that it was an invisible ghost train.
Yeah. Yep.
What? Wow.
A schlocky 2007 documentary on the Sci-Fi Channel titled... Schlocky? That's what the article says.
Wow.
On the Sci-Fi Channel titled Children of the Grave earned the trail even more notoriety. In the film, paranormal investigators present photos and videos of, quote, shadow people who stalk the edges of the trail.
Why did we not watch this documentary?
I don't know. We need to.
Yeah.
The documentary claims that these shadow people are the spirits of children who, quote, suffered horrible deaths down there.
Could they also maybe be the Native Americans that were probably murdered at the hands of white people, and the white people also murdered at the hands of the Native Americans, but a little bit less wrongfully so?
Probably. Possibly at an orphanage or asylum for the mentally ill.
Yeah.
But there is no record of an asylum ever being located nearby.
Okay.
And the closest orphanage, a Catholic home that burned to the ground in 1885, was located several miles away.
Okay.
Newspapers reported no fatalities from the fire.
Oh, good.
In 2010, the trail, accessible near Ridge Meadows Elementary School in Ellisville, was paved and renamed Rock Hollow Trail, but that hasn't kept thrill seekers from congregating along the path. Between January and Halloween of last year, St. Louis County Police reportedly issued 83 tickets to people trespassing after hours along the roadway. Greg Myers, an investigator with the St. Louis-based Paranormal Task Force,
What?
and one of the ghost hunters featured in Children of the Grave, says he's starting to think some of the stories surrounding the path, such as the one about a massive grave of children hidden away in the forest, are pure urban myth.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like it. But that doesn't mean there isn't a good deal of supernatural activity on Zombie Road.
Right, no doubt.
Some areas environmentally just keep people there for various reasons, Myers says. Zombie Road is an interesting place. There's been so much tragedy over the years, you can see why it releases these energies. Right. It could be a vortex or a portal to the other side.
So, okay, can we explore the idea of genus loci for a second?
Yeah.
So, genus loci means like the spirits of the land. In spirituality-based practices, or I should say in earth-based spirituality practices, oftentimes people believe that the land has just natural spirits. I mean, you see this all over the world. Like, there are fairies, and I mean, we're like the real fae, not like our idea of like Tinkerbell. Fairies and trolls and goblins and giants, like they span the entire globe across multiple cultures. So, I don't know, like, I'm not saying fairies, but like, again, the land has spirits. The land itself has energy, and, you know, this is getting a little bit hippy-dippy woohoo, which we know I love. But, again, like, the land has genus loci.
Right.
And so, like, when you do have a specific area that has seen tragedy, I mean, the hordes of people that were pushed from their native homelands through this area of the country, Missouri especially, is a crossroads for the Trail of Tears.
Yeah.
And, like, that in and of itself is a tragedy and a travesty. And then, you know, they fight back. They kill people. Their people are killed. Lots of death and destruction. from that situation, then yeah, you've got people drowning in the river. They wore wool all the time. Yeah. Wool's heavy. You go near water, your edge of your skirt gets wet, you get sucked in, and then you're dead before you even know what happened. Yeah. So, like, that's not surprising. I watch a lot of historical documentaries. And one of the, Lucy Worsley, she's an English historian, and she did a series kind of living through the centuries. And at one point, she actually put on medieval dresses and went and got in a river and almost drowned, like, in a controlled experiment to see how easy it would be to drown.
That's crazy.
In the clothes that they would wear, and probably not so much the same in the 1800s. I'm going on a really weird tangent. This feels really weird, but again, like, drowning deaths, not surprising near a body of water like that. And then, the kids being stupid, like, certain areas, unfortunately, are just, they collect so much energy. And then, the spirits of the land, and then the new, if somebody stays behind after death, earthbound spirit, you never know,
I mean, it does make sense to me.
Right.
Anyways, would you visit Zombie Road? Would going here make you afraid-ish?
I would be afraid-ish. I don't know if I would go or not.
I mean, I'd
maybe
visit
in a group.
Yeah, during the day.
During the day? A group setting during the day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have another small one.
Okay.
It's called the Bubblehead family of North County.
Oh.
Near St. Louis.
Okay.
There are theories of how the family got the name Bubbleheads. According to Missouri lore, there was a well-to-do family that lived on Carico Road in Old Jamestown, Missouri, a suburb of St. Louis. The head of that family decided the only way to pass down the family genes was to, keep it in the family.
This is an episode of The X-Files.
Yeah.
No, I'm not even kidding. This is a premise of an episode on The X-Files.
The only way to keep the bloodline pure was to basically fuck your own brother and sister.
I'm sorry.
After years of inbreeding, the family developed water on the brain, also known as hydrocephalus. Huh. Another story says the family took experimental drugs that made their heads swell to the size of pumpkins.
I bet the Dare moms loved that one.
Yeah.
Don't take drugs or you'll end up with a bubblehead.
Yeah. The government or pharmaceutical company paid the family off and hid them away at the end of this isolated road.
Of course. The government just loves to pay people to not be in public.
Either way, they keep to themselves and attack trespassers at night. Some stories in the area reference mysterious hitchhikers or just simply ghosts with big swollen heads that roam the area. Huh. A guy who inherited a farmhouse on Carico Road said there could be some truth to that tale. Huh. He remembers a boy who lived at the far end of the street a long time ago. The boy had hydrocephalus, a medical condition that leads to swelling of the brain. Mm-hmm. Supposedly he would play outside wearing a helmet to protect his sensitive skull. He and others say the family moved away a long time ago, probably to seek privacy. Thrill seekers still go there to find any sightings of the Bubbleheads. Since it's private property, many are fined since the area is patrolled by St. Louis County Police. So do these Bubbleheads still exist? Are they monsters that hack people up for trespassing? Would seeing a Bubblehead make you afraid-ish?
I'll reserve judgment on this one.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's real. It's just stories.
I could understand maybe if somebody had a health condition like hydrocephalus.
Yeah, and then back in the day,
rumors.
People,
and then all of us, again, we're playing the game of telephone here.
Yeah.
One malformed child all of a sudden is a family of pumpkin heads.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't doubt that, pharmaceutical companies giving them drugs and they happen to get hydrocephalus or whatever.
I don't know. That seems less likely to me than the incest.
Yeah. Well, that's... You hear that a lot where, richer
white
people
love to keep their stock pure.
Game of Thrones, right there, baby.
Just every white family throughout history look at the Europeans, like, literally.
Yeah.
Back in the day when, you know, they were all kings and queens and they were marrying their sisters to their cousins. Allies.
Or allies.
Who were all related anyway.
Yep. Anyways, those are my stories.
Okay. So it's my turn. I have one story, and it's a longie. It's a lot of history.
Nice.
To get to some pretty interesting...
You know, I like a lot of history. We do a lot of history on this podcast.
We do a lot of history in this household.
Yeah, we do. We really do.
A lot.
And I know we do a little... This is a paranormal podcast, and we talk a little bit about the paranormal stuff, but I'm really interested in the history of these, how these places got the paranormal activity in the first place. Yeah. Yeah,
like what led up to the end of the telephone line to what is alleged to happen today. So, I think it's interesting. It's different. It's not something that a lot of paranormal people in general, researchers and things, it's a lot of...
Yeah, I'm loving this. I'm loving the podcast. I like doing it. I don't care if very many people listen or not.
Right.
It's just fun to do.
It is. It's a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun, like, having a deadline to research things. I need to give myself deadlines for work because then, like, I might actually do stuff.
Yeah.
But so my story is of the Castle House in Brumley, Missouri. This is out towards St. Louis area.
That area has a lot of paranormal history.
Again, think to the history, the 1800s, Trail of Tears, the pioneers,
the Civil
moving
War.
Westward, Civil War, Brumley. God damn it. Trying to maps it. I want to get an exact. Okay, so actually, it's not that far from us. It's about an hour and 50 minutes northeast of us, heading towards Rolla.
Nice.
So, okay, it's not where I thought that it was. It's actually, ooh, this is out by Jessica, towards Urbana. Well, past Urbana.
Okay.
Oh, girl, I think we need to go somewhere. Anyway, she's not probably going to listen. If she does, hi. So the Castle House, there's a lot of debate to the history of the Castle House. A lot of stuff that I read and YouTube videos that I watched gave one version of history. And then if you go on the current owner's website, I think it's castlehouse.com. Let me double check that. Oh, yes. Okay. hauntedcastlehouse.com. They have gone through a lot of time and trouble to fact check some of the lies and misconceptions that have been spread about the house. So, a lot of this that I have is in reference to the current owner's website and the information that they have put together. I mean, they've gone through archives, they've talked with local historians, people that have lived in the area, whose families have been in the area. Now, the current owners are from, I think, Tennessee, and he did some work in a Carolina-ish, maybe, Georgia. He's a dentist or a doctor. That's not as important. Anyway, so the Castle House was built sometime between 1870 and 1890, I think. And, it was built somewhere between 1890 and 1910. My apologies.
Cool.
The man who is most associated with this house and his wife, they actually never existed. So there was supposedly this Dr. and Martha Dixon who built the house, he was a Confederate in the Civil War, and he treated his comrades at the house. None of that happened. Dr. Dixon did exist, but he was born after the Civil War, and the house was not built until the 1890s. And his wife was not named Martha. His wife was... poo.
A lot of dead space.
I wrote this in my handwriting, so, sucks. But, okay, so I'm just going to go through the history of the house owner by owner, and we'll kind of hash it out as we go. So the earliest deed for this property dates all the way back to 1812 in the name of a Sarah Lee. She is the first recorded owner of the land, but she never actually lived there. I find it very interesting that at this point in history, fresh after the American War for Independence, there's a woman's name on a deed for property.
Right.
I just find that fascinating, because back then women weren't allowed to own property.
Yeah, it's true.
So in 1836, a Reverend Jacob Shaw McComb Sr., he was a former teacher, a minister, he was a farmer. He was a farmer, teacher, and minister. He enlisted in Company D with the Union Army and served from June 23rd, 1861 to December 6th, 1861. His first wife, Emily, died at the age of 40 on the property. The castle house at this time had not been built, so she didn't die in the castle house. She died on the property, though, at the age of 40. One of their 10 kids also died here at the age of 5 weeks old. His second wife, Julian, had 6 kids with him. So, first wife had 10 kids.
Damn.
Second wife had 6 kids.
Shit.
Yeah. She died in Stockton, Kansas at the age of 35. And his third wife, Ava, never lived on the property. So for sure one wife died on the property, at least one child died on the property. He died in Oregon City, Oregon at the ripe old age of 92.
Damn.
In 1875, Dr. John L. Connor, who was a doctor, coroner, and teacher, he was the Miller County coroner from 1875 to 1881. His office and his apothecary shop are believed to have been on the property. This is pre-Castle House, though, still. He would have treated patients and prepared bodies on the property. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
In 1885, John C. Martin, who was a farmer, merchant, and innkeeper, purchased the house. He owned the Martin Hotel in, I think, Versailles, but it's spelled like Versailles. I hate that so much. He owned the Martin Hotel in Versailles. He loved to play the fiddle. His wife played the organ. They had 8 children.
Damn.
They did have a set of twin daughters, Love and Dove, who were stillborn and are buried, it says, within 1,000 feet of the property. I don't know if that means the house or somewhere on the current property boundary line.
Yeah.
In 1893, Clifford J. Thompson, who was the postmaster in Miller County, purchased the house. He and John Martin are kind of 2 of the top contenders for who actually built the castle house. He was married to his first wife, Belle. They had 3 kids, so they did not qualify for that TLC Quiverful reality show, unfortunately. I don't know that any of them died on the property. His second wife, Emma, never lived on the property. Then in 1901, we have another merchant, James Thompson. He co-owned a store with Dr. S.P. Hickman. He is another contender to be a possible builder of the house. He and his wife had 4 kids. So one thing that I noticed with this property, I'm just going to pause because there are a lot more owners. Normally with these historic properties, the property stays in one family for a really long time. Like we saw that with the Kendrick house. It was owned by one family from the Civil War up until the 1980s when it was sold to the Historical Society. Yeah. So this house has already changed hands just in the span of 80 years, like 6 times.
That is crazy.
So it has just seen a lot of energy. It's seen a lot of history. It's seen a lot of people. It's seen a lot of doctors.
Yeah.
And postmen. In 1907, Joseph McWilliams, he was a miller, a foreman at the post office, and he would go on to own an electric company when his grain mill would eventually be turned into a power mill. He is another potential candidate for the one who built the house, the Castle House. In 1916, Clyde Fred Pemberton, a farmer, salesman, and oilfield worker. He and his wife and their 5 kids lived on the property. In 1920, Charles Short, a teacher, banker, and politician. His wife, Cora, and their 2 kids. Then in 1928, so these families are living on this property less than a decade on average, most of them, I'm noticing. 8 to 10 years is kind of the average that these people are living on this property. It's just so fascinating. In 1928, Charles Short sold the property to Dr. Walter Duncan Dixon, his wife Grace Maud. They had 2 children, James and Mary. They had a hired hand who lived with them in 1930. He died of a heart attack in the house in 1930, the hired hand. See, in 1930, James Dixon, son of Dr. Walter Dixon, was a mailman, prison guard, and timekeeper. His wife, Leila Chloe, they had 4 children, Bonnie, Walter, Dude, James Jr. or Jimmy, and Helen.
Did you say Dude?
Yeah, like as a nickname.
Oh,
like it's in Layla, Chloe, quotation, Walter, Dude, James Jr., Jimmy, and Helen.
So Walter was Dude.
Walter was nicknamed Dude. Yeah.
Got it.
James Dixon, the patriarch of this family unit, was an alcoholic and had anger issues. He showed up at the post office drunk with a gun, threatening to kill Audie Warren, a man he thought got him fired from the post office.
So he went postal.
He went postal, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, that does happen sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's very sad.
Yeah. Don't ever go postal.
No.
Dr. Myron Jones just happened to be there and was able to disarm him and took the gun back to Chloe. She then sold the gun back to its original owner.
Sold the gun? That's funny. Okay.
In 1935, he sold his home to Dr. Myron Jones. He died of heart disease at 66 in 1965. Dr. Myron Jones purchased the house in 1935.
So is this a big house where only doctors can afford it?
I mean, it's a substantial Victorian. I wouldn't call it a mansion, but it's definitely, I would call it a manor house.
Okay.
Like if, these people were wealthy enough. It's certainly not your typical Victorian home, though. It very much resembles, it doesn't look like a castle, but it looks like what a Victorian doctor might envision a castle looking like. Now, the rumors or the history of the house claim that Dr. Dixon, the original, I think he was like the 3rd or 4th owner of the property. No, sorry, John Martin gets confused with Dr. Dixon as to being the builder of the house. So people claim that Dr. Dixon built the house. He built it after a house that he saw in London in the UK, had a couple of staircases shipped over from London, which is not true. The staircases were built by carpenters here in Missouri. So there's a lot, there's so much history to this house. I mean, in 1935, Dr. Myron Jones bought the house. He practiced medicine in Brumley from 1933 to 1947, president of the American College of Orthopedic Pediatricians. He treated a scarlet fever outbreak in 1936 and a polio outbreak in 1946. He is the one who built the 9,000-gallon cistern under the house. He served as mayor in 1936.
Nice. He
had 3 children with his first wife, Marjorie. Marjorie died in 1983. I would presume not on the property. He remarried 2 years later. That seems old to remarry. His second wife was Alma Green. He died in 1989 in Washington State from heart failure. In 1947, Charles Bass was a former merchant and postmaster. He married Lefty May, and they had 5 children. Lefty. Gladys, Louis Dean, he died at 15 months from flu. It does not say whether that happened on the property or off. Marble, Amel, and Mary Pauline. He died of a heart attack and cirrhosis in Jefferson City, Missouri. Then in 1956, William Burt Sullivan was a barber. He was reported to smell like rose talcum powder. His wife was Norma Cecil Connor. Her uncle, Dr. John Connor, was a former owner of the property. They had 2 children, Hazel and Ruth. He died in the house of complications from arthritis in 1963. In 1956 to 1983, Norma Cecil Connor Sullivan, she was a seamstress and cook, so she was Bert Sullivan's wife. She owned a hat shop. She also died in the house from old age and dementia in 1984. Walter and Hazel Pope and James and Ruth Thornsbury inherited the house upon Cecil's death, so these were their 2 children. In 1984, Emerson Alley was the owner of a cleaning service and Korean War veteran. He was married to Myra Luttrell. He died in the house of a heart attack, and his wife sold the house 2 months after his death. Then it goes through a bunch of really short-term owners. In 1988 to 1991, Mega Mobile Home Sales. 1999 to 1997, Doug and Judith Thompson. 97 to 98, Barbara and Ray Bartholomew. 1998 to 2009, Steve and Angela O'Hare. 2009 to 2013, Angela O'Hare. And then you start getting into the modern day owners. So in 2013, Nick Seiko and Marcy Hootner, they restored the Castle House and had originally planned on using it as a bed and breakfast. But once they were living there, odd little happenings started happening. And they decided to market it as a haunted bed and breakfast.
That's cool.
And they hosted special events there. And so this guy, I believe, was one of the ones in a YouTube video that I was watching where he was kind of giving some of the wrong information about people that didn't exist and staircases coming from the United Kingdom. And like, this was probably the information they had at the time, but the current owners were able to clear up some of that, I guess.
That's good.
But they decided to sell the house after Marcy saw Nick's doppelganger one night and could no longer stay in the house.
Damn.
Yeah. In 2016, Mike and Vicky Rowland, they continued to use the house as a haunted bed and breakfast. They did ghost tours and a benefit for the Hope program called Witches and Warlocks. And they sold the house in 2018 to Steve and Judy Skinner. So they were the current owners of the haunted Castle House, originally from Paducah, Kentucky. Steve has been a practicing dermatologist in Coleman, Alabama for over 25 years. And he and Judy hope to continue preserving the Castle House and hosting paranormal investigations, tours, and special events there. So that was all from their website. Then I love my YouTube. I get on YouTube and I watch paranormal investigations. Some of them are really dumb. But I almost didn't watch the video because it was cell phone footage of 2 people who went up and stayed at the house with the present day owners. And they did some investigating using some ghost hunting equipment, and then they did a Ouija board session. And this seems like a really genuine investigation. The one lady, I guess, is purported to be a psychic, or at least a sensitive. She kind of was getting a feel of the place. They did some walks around the property and talked kind of about the history of the property, and that was what I enjoyed seeing when watching this video, was that the owners just talked, like, they seemed really excited about the history of their property, and they seemed to come at it from a very respectful place, and not like a gimmicky, like, oh, we own a haunted house.
Yeah. Even
though they did say that at one point it started with a pendulum and then evolved into buying a haunted house.
Yeah.
So obviously there is a little bit of novelty in it. Like, they knew they were buying a haunted house. But I think that they are respectful of the history. So you can see anomalies in, you take a photograph and allegedly there's anomalies that weren't there visible by the naked eye. I have a hard time with photographs myself just because they are so easily doctored, or, even we don't use film anymore, but film and digital photograph capturing equipment. Wow. Boomer. That was a very boomery way of saying digital photography. They're not perfect. So, if there's even a speck of dust somewhere, blowing through the wind, like, it's going to pick up on weird things. So stuff like that, I'm a little skeptical of. I can look at a reflection in a window and go, that's definitely a tree. The reflection of a tree branch, not a face in the window. But at the same time, I want to believe. I'm a little Fox Mulder in that way.
Yeah.
You get a lot of audio stuff at the house too. Supposedly, there's a little girl that was a patient of one of the doctors who passed away in the house from some burns. She likes the ladies. She likes to play with hair, touch pretty fingernails. She's often holding women's hands and stuff like that. If you knock on the wall, sometimes something will knock back. There's footage, I think it's called an SLS camera, where it kind of tracks, like the stick figures.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, yeah.
There's footage of people that aren't there in real life, but they're mapping on the SLS camera. Just a lot of activity. The Haunted Castle House has allegedly earned the reputation of being one of the most haunted houses in the Midwest. And so that's contending with Lemp Mansion.
Yeah.
These more notorious haunts. And I'd never heard of this place.
I haven't either.
So I'm definitely interested to go. Now you can, the current owners of the house, they do allow, they have, where you can take tours and things. Let me pull up on their website. If you watch, I think it's the Travel Channel's The Dead Files. They filmed an episode at this house. I used to watch The Dead Files back when we had cable. We don't have cable anymore. But I'm
not a fan of that show.
I mean, it was entertainment. It was on. Again, I like to have a healthy dose of skepticism, but it's cool. When a local landmark is on a big show like that.
Well, it's cool, the show, but the whole...
I know, I get it. The psychic, you think she's a lot, but you married a woman who's also a lot.
Yeah, you are.
So, anyway, you can watch that episode here on their website, hauntedcastlehouse.com. Anyway, for tools and investigation... For tours and investigations, you can do an overnight paranormal investigation. You can do a 4-hour ghost hunt or a 1-hour tour. And those are all priced variously. I feel like it's decent. If you got the overnight is $500 per group. If you had a paranormal investigation crew where there's 5 people, that's $100 a person. That's not bad.
No.
Or you could do a 4-hour ghost hunt for $50 a person. A 1-hour tour. I cannot say the word tour. A 1-hour tour for $15 a person. So yeah, I think that would be really cool. I would love to maybe go up and take a tour.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Or do a 4-hour investigation or something. I think that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
And that's kind of all I have on the Haunted Castle House. Yeah. A lot of the history is very convoluted and confusing. Just based on I really would go on their website and read the history as they have it laid out, because I feel like they have done a lot of work. They've put a lot of time and dedication into it. And so they've really tried to get the facts straight. So a lot of the stuff that you see on the internet, I read articles from local blogs and local newspapers that had the wrong information as well. So yeah, I found it interesting that that house is so old, and yet there were so many different owners. Yeah, and it wasn't just different owners, meaning dad died, son take it over.
Different families.
Completely different families. So, at the time you buried your dead on your property. So there's so many different families buried in that, quote, family cemetery. It's an interesting mix of energies. Now, I did have one other location that I wanted to talk about. I don't have a ton of information on it, though. But this is a place in Joplin. Now, as much of a lover of history as I am, American history just doesn't tickle my fancy the way, seriously ancient history does. And most of the ancient history that we have a lot of records on is the Mediterranean, Europe, and Asia. So I watch a lot of that history, not so much American history. So I was shocked to find out that a pretty notorious gang actually spent a lot of time here in Missouri. I never really knew where these people came from, but I found out that they came from Texas and spent a considerable amount of time here in Missouri. And if you would like to know who that band of misfits was, not misfits, they were more than misfits. Anyway, why are you looking at me like that? You're making me really uncomfortable. So, anyway, I didn't know that Bonnie and Clyde lived in Joplin for 12 days.
Yeah.
I had no idea. That wasn't something, when we learned about Bonnie and Clyde, they didn't really talk about that. It was they killed cops. Bad, bad, bad.
Yeah, they did a lot through Missouri.
Yeah. And also, like, I didn't know Jesse James. Like, for whatever reason, when I thought Jesse James, I thought Wild Wild West. And when I think Wild Wild West, I think Utah, Arizona, Colorado.
Kansas.
Well, not, like, I think West.
Right.
Utah, Nevada, etc.
He's from over by Kansas City.
Most of the Wild West stories took place in this, Texas, Oklahoma, Missouri part of the world. Yeah. Which is just funny to me that my perception of geography is so bad. But, Bonnie and Clyde, they rented an apartment over a garage in Joplin, Missouri for about 12 days before they were found out by the Fuzz. Bonnie and Clyde is not, again, I don't really research a lot of American history. They're not a group that I focused on a lot. But that's a really sad, tragic story. Yeah. On so many different levels, from, the loss of light, the loss of lives at their hands, just to the fact that they were kids with potential, but they were born during a time during the Great Depression. I think it said that Bonnie was born in Cement City, which is in, I think, Dallas. It was one of the biggest Depression-era homeless camps in America at the time.
That's crazy.
And she was born there. So, like, just imagining the lives that they led to lead them up to deciding that this was their only option. A life of crime and murder. It's very sad. But the house that they rented still exists. You can actually Airbnb it out and stay overnight there, which I think would be really cool. The current owner has really tried to preserve the history. It's decorated very cute. And in fact, like, looking at pictures and seeing video of the house, tours of the house, I got no bad vibes. Like, there are some places where you can tell on camera it's a bad energy. Yeah. And I don't know if it's because there's so much natural light, which is why they picked that place. There are wall-to-wall windows on all four sides. Great vantage point to see if the police were coming. Yeah. And it's a very bright, uplifting looking space. The current owner has done a great job with the decor, keeping it era appropriate, but also comfortable for her guests. And there's also a museum in Joplin. I think it's the Mineral and Gem Museum or something like that. Don't quote me on that. There is a museum in Joplin where they do have a small exhibit of artifacts from the home. When they left that apartment, they left in a hurry. They took nothing with them. They left their suitcases, their clothes, their jewelry. So a lot of the jewelry is at this museum. One of the doors with bullet holes is at the museum as well. You can see all the bullet holes. There are still bullet holes in the exterior of the residence, as well as there's one in a closet, kind of at a weird angle where I guess bullet spray had come in through one of the windows and embedded in the closet.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So just a fascinating story that I didn't know. Maybe I'm ignorant, but I had no idea that Bonnie and Clyde were here in Missouri, and that they left a little bit of a mark in a place that, you could potentially go and visit, which I always think is so fascinating when you can go to these places where history happened, whether it's good history or bad history, whether you agree with the history or not, just going and being in that energy. It is an actual trip if you're sensitive to that. Like, you can actually get high off of it. It's crazy.
Yeah. All right. We're going to wrap this up, I guess.
Since I've gone ahead and made it weird. Yeah.
If you have any stories or requests of anything you want to hear about, or if you know anyone who does, please email us at afraidishpodcast@gmail.com. We're on Instagram and Facebook at afraidishpodcast, and Twitter at afraid_ish. All the links will be in the show notes. And as always, don't be afraid of the dark. Be afraid-ish of what's in it.